And I would like to take the opportunity, love the opportunity that you have given me to come here and speak to you today. I'm Chris Newsom's mother, and I'm here to speak about the 13th Juror rule so that no other family will have to go through the same devastation that we did. Our son and his girlfriend Shannon went out on a date and never returned home. They were carjacked, kidnapped, raped, beaten, choked. She was stuffed in a garbage can, and Chris was shot 3 times and left by a railroad track to die, and was also burned. We sat through 4 different trials with guilty verdicts. Unfortunately, the judge had to leave the bench because of a prescription drug addiction. The Supreme Court sent another one to replace him, and his first comment was new trials for everyone because there was no documentation of the 13th juror, and he could not be the 13th juror because he said he had to see the witnesses' faces. I just wanted to cry. I couldn't go through this again. It was finally appealed, and he was asked to step down, which he did not do voluntarily. We were devastated. We had to sit and go over again all the gruesome details of these 2 murders and look at the pictures of our 2 children that were brutally beaten and burned. For one of the trials, Judge Kurtz wouldn't even sign off until months later, and that was the Thomas trial. If something would have happened to him in the meantime, we would have had to redo that trial again. This would have cost the state many more dollars. We had already been in court over 300 times. We spent so much time in the courtroom that one of our daughters stated in her impact statement, she not only lost her brother, but she lost her parents too. If Judge Blackwood's ruling would have stood the new trials for everyone, we would have gone through a total of 8 trials, all because Judge Baumgartner did not sign a 1-sentence statement that he had been, as the 13th juror, accepted the previous jury's verdict, even though he was heard verbally accepting it, then thanked the jury and dismissed them. Then these trials consumed almost 7 years of our lives and also the time of the jurors that had to be there. With the lack of the documenting of the 13th juror function extending our time in court almost 2 years. If we can keep another family from going through what we encountered, then the time and effort spent on this proposed change will be well worth it. This change will not affect legitimate reasons for awarding a new trial. Some states do not even require the function of the 13th juror, acceptance and verdict. Pass the court recorder documenting the judge accepting the jury's decision on that date. This proposed change doesn't cost the taxpayer 1 cent once implemented. It will keep other families from the stress, depression, and heartbreak that the Christians and my family have had to endure. My doctor has even diagnosed me with having TSP, post-stress syndrome. I would have to have some type of closure. I could have some type of closure if I knew something good would come from this, and his death was to help somebody. Please consider making this a positive change, and I thank you for letting me speak to you from my heart about my feelings on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Newsom, and we are truly sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Ms. Christian, please.
I'd like to start by telling you a little something about my daughter. She was 21 when she was murdered. She would have been 29 today. She was the second miracle in our lives. She made our family complete. She was beautiful on the inside and the out. She loved life, her family, her friends. She had gorgeous blue eyes and a smile that would light up any room. She was hardworking, ethical, honest, loving, and loyal to a fault. She made this world a better place. She was a senior at the University of Tennessee, and she would have graduated in December of 2007. She was wanting to help kids in some way when she graduated because she loved children. She was a better person more than I could ever be. In January of 2007, our lives were forever changed, and not for the better. Our daughter, Channon Christian, and her boyfriend, Chris Newsom, were carjacked, brutally raped by every means possible, tortured, and then murdered. Law enforcement officers, the district attorneys, the local media, and even the judges said it was the most heinous crime they'd ever seen in the state of Tennessee. 2 of the 5 lowlifes that did these horrific things to our kids had just recently been released from prison early for aggravated carjacking. We all, the 4 of us, and our families had to sit through years of hearings and trials over and over, one by one, reliving our heartache and what they did to our kids. Gary and I watched our son shut himself off from the rest of the world, from us, his friends, and all the ones that he loved. I watched my husband turn from a loving, caring, forgiving man who thought the best in everybody, turn into a man that had nothing but anger, hate, and revenge in his heart. As for me, I struggle every day, even after 7 years, for the fact that I could not protect my child. And the thought of what they did to her still haunts me every day. Seeing Shannon stuffed in a trash can and left to die breaks our heart. She was a victim. How can anyone tell me she was not a person? We go through years of trials only to find out the judge was using drugs, and this causes us to have to relive this horror with 2 retrials. But the worst trial for us was the Davidson trial. His attorneys, Trent and Eldridge, chose a defense based on nothing but lies. For over 2 weeks, we had to sit there while they lied to everyone, the system, the jury, to us, to the public. They lied to everybody about our daughter. I thought attorneys had to swear an oath not to lie, but I'm just me. To sit there and listen to them lie about Shannon and Chris's character and their way of life, and then accusing Shannon of doing drugs and of being associated with the likes of Davidson, this was almost more than we could bear to sit there and listen to, but we did. People would tell us, it's okay, it doesn't matter. People won't believe it, but it does matter. Shannon was a good person. She'd never given us any trouble. She didn't do drugs. The coroner proved that. We had and still have proof that she didn't do drugs. I went to her work and got the records from her workplace showing that she had random drug tests throughout the year. There were no drugs in my system, nor was my daughter a drug addict. They just lied. Those attorneys were lying about our daughter's past. She wasn't here to defend herself. We were her only voice. They lied about Shannon, and we couldn't even tell the truth about Davidson. It does matter. How would you feel if it were your child or your loved one? We don't want anyone else to have to go through lies like we did. The laws as they exist today protect the defendants. You can't bring up their past bad acts, yet defense attorneys are allowed to bring up the victim's past, even if they lie about it. And this needs to change. The victim's rights under the Tennessee Constitution state a victim should be free from intimidation, harassment, and abuse throughout the justice system. We miss Shannon and Chris every second of every day. Don't let anybody ever tell you it gets better, because it doesn't. These 5 savages took away a daughter, a son, a sister, a brother, an aunt, an uncle, and one day a wife, a husband, and a mother and a father. My family will never be complete again. I'd like to thank you for your time, for listening to my story, our story, and most importantly, I hope for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Christian, for your comments. We are very, very sorry for your loss. And as Chairman McNally mentioned, this is one of the largest travesties of injustice that this state has seen. And I'm sure that coming here and being forced to relive these facts is even more difficult for both of you. And so I want to thank you for having the courage to be with us here today and to make these comments on the record.
We do it for our daughter and for our son.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any comments while we're in recess from the members or questions? Okay, then we'll go back into session.